Hey everyone, it's Hannah. I wanted to quickly ask if you are enjoying the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It goes a long way in getting the show in front of other listeners. If you listen on a platform that doesn't do reviews, please follow us on social media, like the show, or leave a comment. Thank you. We love you guys, and we hope you enjoy the show.
It's robot piss.
Yeah.
You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katy.
Welcome back. Happy Thursday.
Yeah, it's been an okay Thursday.
Yeah, same-ish. Same. It's been shitty weather, but...
Yeah. I was promised thunderstorms, and
Yeah.
I received no thunder. Which ultimately I guess is for the best because it really bothers Jory.
Oh.
So, yeah.
I got a text like maybe 30 minutes ago from a girl that goes to our gym, and she said, and I don't know where she lives to be fair, but she said, I was gonna come out, but then it started raining and we're supposed to get really bad thunderstorms, which I didn't then verify with my weather app. I just hoped that she lived near me and that the thunderstorms will come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't get any.
No, got a lot of wind.
A lot of wind. It's whipping. Like, we got the wind, and we got rain, but...
Yeah. I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, but the way that my office is like, there's my office, and then directly outside of it is a big open space for shipping and receiving, and a big bay door. And the bay door is not, I don't want to say it's not secure. It's a loosey goosey.
It's just like a rolling door.
Yeah.
So it rattles, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh. So, like, it doesn't even take strong wind to rattle this thing. All day today, it just sounded like someone shaking. It was like God was shaking a giant baking sheet,
banging against it.
So that was fun. You look very cute.
Thank you.
Which I said off mic, but Katy got a haircut,
much needed,
and she came over wearing a cute little outfit, which I didn't get the memo on.
Like I said, I'm just trying not to look like 4-day-old garbage anymore. Yeah. I mean, just also, like, it's finally warm, so you can wear fun, cute things, and I'm not just dressing for warmth and comfort.
Yeah, true.
And I'm like, I don't want to just dress for comfort and convenience either.
Yeah.
I want to put some effort into my look.
Yeah. Usually you feel better when you
look better. Like, I'm not worried about looking pretty. I want to feel pretty. Because if I feel pretty, then I feel good all over. Yeah. It doesn't matter if I actually look pretty or not, or if anyone else thinks I look pretty. If I feel pretty, then that's what it is.
Well, you look very pretty.
Well, thank you.
I like this look. I like your other look, too. But to be fair.
This was better. This is an improvement. I have something for you.
Oh, okay.
So, your Christmas present got lost in the mail.
Right, I remember.
And I have made no progress in getting it found. So Sheldon also had an issue with the post office. They lost his package, too.
Jeez.
And so he was returning some truck parts. Mm-hmm. And so he, tried to go through the website multiple times. It wouldn't work. So he tried calling, and so I had to file a claim. A whole lot of back and forth. Mm-hmm. And they finally sent him a check for like $150. And I'm like, sure. How much was the total price of the items you were trying to return?
Yeah.
Oh, like $500.
Oh.
So we were like,
okay.
So no post office.
That doesn't work.
And thankfully, he had also been like trying to like working with the seller and going through eBay and whatnot and trying to be like, look, you can't say that the return is closed.
Yeah.
Because the post office lost.
Yeah.
So like, I sent it back. I've got the receipts that prove that I sent it. They lost it.
Yeah.
I want my refund. And eBay is like, okay, here's your refund. So I'm just like, you know what? Make sure that the refund goes through, and then just keep the check that the post office sent you as payment for the hassle that they put you through.
Yeah. Nice. So. That works.
But anyway, think of this as a belated Christmas present / I don't know, podcast anniversary present.
Thank you. Hold on, let me move my stuff. I'm just gonna. Nope. I don't know why I'm always paranoid that you're gonna like read my notes if I set them out.
Because I'm sneaky like that.
And stay on mic.
You already know what it is.
Do I? Yeah. It's the purse that you showed me yesterday. Oh my gosh.
I got the same one for me in green.
Oh my
gosh.
So
we have matching purses.
Guys, this is a little crossbody, and it's got like a leather, what would you call this?
I would call it a cutout. Like they basically cut out Sasquatch and some trees.
Right.
And then sewed it on as not like a patch, but
like an applique.
Yes, an applique, an embellishment, something like that.
I love this.
And I love the little pouch in the back.
Ooh,
you just slip your phone in
for
there
your phone,
so that you don't have to look in the.
I love this.
It's perfect. You just throw your keys and a wallet and some chapstick or something in the pouch part, and then your phone in the little back slot, and
this is so
voila.
cute. I also really love how this strap is. That's adorable. And I've been wanting to change up my like small purse game. So this is perfect.
So I saw it and I was like, I think I might have to have it. I'm going to think on it. And I was like, I'm just curious because they had some other colors. And I was like, what are the other styles they have? And then I saw they had that one in green. And I was like, well, I really like the green. But if I have one.
I really like the tan.
Then Hannah needs it too. So
yes.
we can have matching purses.
When we go hang out at the bar with your kid.
Yeah.
We'll have matching.
Well, I was thinking whenever we finally get that live show scheduled.
Yeah. I need to.
We can both wear our matching purses for the live show.
Did you see that they bought the coffee shop downstairs?
I saw there's a whole bunch of mess that the coffee shop just like, I heard they basically just like up and left.
Yeah,
like overnight kind of a thing.
I had read something on Facebook, I want to say on like Monday, where someone was like, oh, come down to Nautical Star, and they've got this, I guess they did beer down there, and they did some kind of alcohol. But they were like, help them sell out before they move. And I was like, oh, I didn't know they're moving. That's sad. I kind of like that place. And then we went to Pinky's the next day for trivia, which, for anyone listening, is the bar on the second floor of this coffee shop. And I walked past the storefront, and it was gutted. And I was like, oh, God.
Walked by yesterday, and there was just some shirtless dude with a long braided ponytail painting the walls. And I was like,
nice. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Well, I just read the post on Facebook where they said when Nautical Star left that they asked their landlord if they could, I guess, rent if it's a landlord. And so they're going to do food downstairs. And I guess they're going to do like beer and wine and then food. But it's going to be like the same bar, or it's the same establishment.
Right.
So. Okay. You ready for a story? All right. So I'm going to preface this by saying the main part of the story does not involve death. It's relatively fine.
Kind of like how nobody died in last episode, except it was all about people who had died.
Hypothetical
allegedly.
People, alleged deaths, except for that one. Except for two of them.
Yeah, there's two verifiable.
Okay, well, to get to that part of the story, we just have to go through a little bit of a rough patch of history. Okay?
Most of history is a rough patch.
Yes. Well, your first picture is who I have to tell you about first. His name is Otto Adolf Eichmann.
He both looks and sounds familiar.
I hadn't heard of him, I don't think, but I'm assuming that you can tell based on his appearance what he did as a job.
Well, the name and the photo, yes, does give it away. He fought for the Russians, right? Or it was the Italians.
Maybe the French. I'm not sure.
Oh, he does look a little French. No,
Adolf Eichmann. That sounds pretty French.
He's Czech.
That's what it is. The Czechs. Everyone forgets about them.
So he was a Nazi officer.
He was a Nazi officer.
was what we're getting at.
Yes. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a brief story about him. Okay. He was born March 19th of 1906.
That's way too close to Critter's birthday.
I know. In Solingen, Germany. And as a young adult, he joined a right-wing movement. Not the Nazi Party, but like very similar. And there he began reading material that was published by the Nazi Party. And the content discussed the Nazi Party platform, which included, at that time, rejecting the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. Smart move. I said sarcastically. That wasn't clear.
Yeah, that didn't come out with a sarcastic
tone
at all. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, rejecting the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, radical anti-Semitism, the formation of a national race-based community, and racial cleansing.
And eugenics.
Yes. So he's consuming this material as a young adult. And by 1932, he officially joined the Austrian branch of the Nazi Party and also the SS. He was eventually transferred to the SD, which my understanding was like the intelligence agency branch of the Nazi military.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that, but yeah.
It's not important.
I don't know. I'm foreseeing a text from my dad explaining the SD.
I know.
I was like, yay, another episode my dad will have feedback and commentary on.
Yay. So within the SD, he's promoted.
I love.
Yeah, we love feedback. We do. He's promoted several times. So he's just like climbing the ranks. In 1935, he gets married to a woman named Vera Leibel.
I love that name.
Vera.
Or Vera, but I like Vera.
They had 4 sons together eventually. And I only include these names because their names were Klaus, Horst, Dieter, and Ricardo.
Ricardo.
It'll make sense later, but like, I just read those names. I was like,
Ricardo.
Wow, the most German names you could give your babies.
And then Ricardo.
Like,
did they go vacation in Spain or something? And they're like,
not quite. But
was Ricardo really Otto's kid, or was Ricardo a junior of someone else?
Well, Ricardo is born. He's really the baby because he's born a little later, and they are no longer living in Germany because it's after the war. In 1938, Eichmann was promoted to first lieutenant and assigned to the Central Agency for Jewish Immigration in Vienna. And then in 1939, the Nazis invaded Poland. And Eichmann was put in charge of organizing the forced deportation of 70 to 80,000 Polish Jews. But he was an overachiever, and so he took it a step further and began planning the deportation of Austrian Jews as well. He's like, oh, well, it's working so well in Poland. I'll go ahead and start planning for this in another country.
That's what gets you promoted.
Speaking of, in 1941, Eichmann was promoted to lieutenant colonel, and he attended the Wannsee Conference, is how I'm going to pronounce that. And that happened a few months after his promotion in 1942. At this conference, the various leaders coordinated plans to implement the, quote, final solution to the Jewish question. The way that is termed is so, like, stomach turning.
Mm-hmm.
So, Eichmann supervised the mass deportations of Jews to extermination camps. Between May and June of 1944, as many as 20,000 Jews a day were transported from Hungary to Auschwitz, and 75 to 90% of them were killed upon arrival, and the rest were used for forced labor.
So I hate talking about and thinking about the Holocaust.
Yeah.
All of this. It upsets me so much, but it is so important that we do talk about it.
Yes.
Because we never want to have something like this happen again, except it keeps trying to, just not just about Jewish people this time.
Yeah.
Other just random, just kill a group of people just cause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And find a way to rationalize it.
It makes me so sick. But yeah, no, it is important to talk about so that and to, like, really, a lot of times when we talk about really horrible stuff, we do our best to give the necessary information without going into too much detail to kind of, like, sensationalize things or glorify things. But I think this is the exception to that.
Yeah.
Where, like, let's not go into detail about what this horrible person did to this other poor person's, body or whatever. Like, we're not going to go into all the gruesome details.
Right.
This, I think, is a topic that we should go into the gruesome details.
Yeah.
Because we don't ever want to have anything like this happen again. Like, we want this topic to make everyone sick.
Yes.
So we don't allow something like this to ever happen again. But also, every time you say something about just the Jewish question or the Jewish problem or something like that, I keep the image that flashes in my mind is that stupid fucking scene from Mama Dracula that we talked about last week with the little 13, 14-year-old girl.
Why do you keep thinking of that?
Because she flashed her underwear and on the front was a cross, and the vampire was like, oh yeah, sure. And then she turned around, it was the Star of David, and that's when he was all... There was obviously anti-Semitic viewpoints by the creators of this movie.
Yes.
And that really bothered me and stuck with me.
Yeah. Well, and the anti-Semitism there was, like, and I think the stuff that we see now is, like, I don't want to say so much more subtle, but, like, subtle in, like, oh, ha ha ha, isn't it funny that these vampires are repulsed by the Star of David? And it's like, okay, but when we let that slide...
Like, I'm not a big fan of South Park. Like, I'll watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But they make a lot of jokes about Jewish people. Mm-hmm. And, like, there's a lot of, like... One of the characters is, like, anti-Semitic, basically. But one of the characters is, or, a couple are actually Jewish. And, like, so there's, like, a weird... balance of the jokes versus not, but I'm also like, find something else to make fun of. Like,
find a less oppressed people group.
Well, I mean, just
or find someone.
Like, it's not funny for one of your characters' like entire personality to be that they hate Jewish people.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
It should be something that, like, we're actively working against the same way that everyone should be actively working against, like, racism. Because there are people groups that, like, we and others did really horrific, violent things to in huge quantities. And, like, that history is important. And we can't we can't forget about it. And you do have to like actively work to keep those views from coming up, even in
because when South Park was first airing, all the teenage boys that loved that show thought it was hilarious, and so they also decided to start making jokes about Jewish people, and they just thought it was funny, but they didn't realize, I guess, because mushy teenage boy brains,
exactly.
how hurtful their silly jokes were,
Yeah,
but also how much of a problem it was for continuing to reestablish that we don't like Jewish people.
Yeah,
They don't know why. Like they have no idea. Like it's basically they were being told to make fun of and hate the Jews, but no reason why. And so there's probably a bunch of young adults now that also have like anti-Semitic viewpoints.
Yeah,
and no real reason as to why.
Yeah,
and it's just because it was something that was through pop culture and in the media, and ha ha ha, this is a funny thing, and then it just became ingrained in their mind and their viewpoints.
Yeah. And I will say, because a friend of mine pointed something like this out to me the other day, that some of those might not necessarily be like because they genuinely think Jewish people are less than or whatever. Some of it might just be they're repeating things that they hear and not realizing that those things are offensive.
Well,
and
that's exactly what I was saying.
But like it's totally okay to be corrected in those things. And to the example my friend gave was, she's a teacher, and a student said something to another student in a joking way, but she had to say, like, you can't say that, that's kind of a slur. And I was like, I honestly didn't know that that was considered a slur. I wouldn't say it because it sounds mean anyways. But she was saying, like, the student was very receptive to it, and I think shit like that is also important to say. Like, you can be corrected. Like, it's okay if you, I don't want to say it's okay if you just don't know, but it's okay, like, if you say something and someone corrects you, that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's how you learn, that's how you grow.
Yeah, like, if you're just saying it out of ignorance, it's good for someone to correct you and for you to say, thank you, I didn't realize that that was an offensive thing. I thought it was just a joke.
And so my thing is, like, I'm not trying to come after South Park. I'm not saying that it's a terrible show and the writers should be, lynched. I'm just saying that, like, that's the best example that I've got. But also, I've not watched a lot of it, so I don't know how much, because my big thing is, if you're going to make fun of someone, make fun of everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, yeah, you might have one character that makes fun of Jewish people all the time, but you got to make fun of other groups of people. Yeah. You got to make fun of everybody. And my thing is, make fun of someone, make fun of everyone, but mostly yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Okay. So it's 1944.
At least things aren't really going their way at this point.
That's true. They're about to go even more downhill, so we're getting there.
But this is also when they get desperate and things start to get real bad.
Yes. So when the Hungarian government halted deportations in July of 1944, Eichmann personally arranged for additional trains to carry more Jews to these concentration camps, which were death camps. And by this point, 437,000 Hungarian Jews had been killed. And that gives me goosebumps because that's just one country.
What was the total of all of the deaths? Wasn't it around 6 million?
Oh, I don't know.
I think I'll ask the Google real quick.
Ask the Google that really sad statistic.
11 million victims of the Holocaust, 6 million Jewish victims, 5 million non-Jewish.
Jeez. Oh, that's so much worse than
Amazing.
what I was thinking. And we're back. We just had some palate cleansers, so everyone go do that. Although the story only gets better from here. That was my last... That fact was like the last horrible fact I'm going to tell you.
All right.
Because Otto Eichmann has a terrible Christmas Eve in 1944 because he has to flee the country because the Soviet Union / the Russians are closing in. So he fled. He eventually he fled wherever he was. He fled and he went back to Berlin. While he was there, he burned incriminating records, and it says he was living in, quote, relative safety with his family in Austria when Germany surrendered on May 7th of 1945. So, the war's over. Germany has surrendered. Eichmann is later captured by U.S. troops. He's put in a work camp, but he does escape from there. So he escapes his work camp. He lived in Germany under a new identity until 1950 when he moved to Buenos Aires, Argentina.
So I was, when you first said fled the country, I was like, did they go to Buenos Aires? Are they in Argentina? Yes. Is that why there's a Ricardo?
That's where a Ricardo was born.
Because that was one thing when we were in Buenos Aires. We were on a tour, and like we had kind of noticed already on our own, like, you know, Shelton and I are not architecture aficionados by any stretch of the imagination, but we were both kind of like, this seems a little European. Like, this is, yeah, I mean, sure, why not? Like, just because it looks European doesn't mean it's not just how they, you know, their own. Are you like, oh, whatever? No, it turns out it was definitely heavily influenced, like European architecture influenced, because of the number of Nazis.
I was gonna say a lot of Nazis went there.
Argentina.
Oops. Not a great stretch in Argentina's history. Okay, so he is going to be in Argentina for 10 years. And while he's there, and he's like sent for his wife and 3 children, and then I guess they have Ricardo while they're there.
Oh, they had 5.
They had 4? Klaus, Horst, Dieter, and Ricardo.
Okay, never mind. I don't know why I thought 5. Sorry.
Okay. So while he's there, he was interviewed by an author who was writing a biography about him. Great choice. And this is a quote he gave. I didn't care about the Jews deported to Auschwitz, whether they lived or died. It was the it was Hitler's order. Führer. I can't say it. There's too many vowels. Okay, he continues. Jews who were fit to work would work, and those who weren't would be sent to the final solution. So
that's a real fancy way of saying gas chamber.
Yeah, and I think later it was later in his trial, they did clarify that he knew like what that meant.
Oh yeah. Was he involved in sending any of the Jews to the experiment?
I don't know, but I do know that Dr. Mengele also fled to Argentina. So there's that. Okay, so 1956, enter who I am considering the hero of the whole fucking story. And we're not even... Okay.
I mean, the bar is pretty low at this point.
The bar's pretty low, but let me tell you about Sylvia Herman.
Love the name.
I know. So she was a Jewish-German girl living in Argentina. Rough time, I'm sure. And she began dating Klaus Eichmann, who presumably did not know that she was Jewish. Because Klaus boasted to his girlfriend about his father's Nazi activity during the war.
My daddy's a war hero.
Oh my gosh.
He killed so many Jews.
I really hope that like when it says that they were dating and she was his girlfriend, that's just like they went on a date.
And we're done.
Yes. So after she learns this information, presumably she's like, we're going to break up. But she goes home and she tells her father what this guy said. Her father alerted the prosecutor general of the state of Hesse in West Germany. Okay. He notified a legal person in Germany. And then Sylvia's dad was like, okay, you can't break up with him yet. You need to go back and get more information about his dad. And Sylvia, being the badass bitch that she was, said,
heck yeah. I'd be like,
okay.
Yeah, I would definitely do an undercover mission. Like, it would, hurt to have to continue to pretend to care about someone and date someone who, like,
is 1 degree away from literally killing.
Also wanted to be, like, he was probably trying to be, daddy's good boy and also have the same beliefs and everything. Yes. And, he probably thought his dad was right and good in doing that.
I'll take the opportunity now to say that Ricardo has gone on record saying that he is not cool with what his dad did. So Ricardo's at least
secondary hero.
Yeah. Okay, so Sylvia goes back to Klaus's house, and who should open the door but Mr. Otto Eichmann himself? Yikes. And I cannot imagine what went through her head when, like, this man opens the door and she's like, oh, fuck. I know who you are, but I have to pretend that I'm just here for dinner.
You killed so many people.
Well, he introduced himself as Klaus's uncle. But then Klaus comes home and he's like, oh, hey, Dad, what's going on? Because Klaus wasn't informed on the plan. Yeah. So,
come on, he planned all of these, like, massive deportations of hundreds of thousands of people. He planned out these work camps and death camps, but he can't make a simple ruse about his family?
You can't, like, have a rule going where it's like, if anyone...
Yeah.
If I don't know, just go with it.
I feel like that's something you establish right away. Like, okay.
Exactly.
We live in Argentina now. And this is our story. Yes. Like, we are German. We moved here, but, like, I'm your uncle. Your dad died in the war.
Your mom's your sister.
Yeah. And...
yeah. Well, lucky for us, stupid Klaus showed up. So, I don't know what... I guess, I don't know if they had dinner or whatever, but Sylvia goes back and then presumably breaks up with Klaus forever. And she tells her dad, like, it's definitely him. So, his identity is confirmed. Now a ton of people get involved. The too long didn't read version of this is essentially the Israeli government asked Germany to extradite Eichmann back to Germany. And they said, no thanks, we don't want to do that. And this is like late 50s, early 60s.
Which Germany's doing a lot of rebuilding.
They're doing a lot.
Because they were already struggling before World War II.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is part of why World War II happened.
Yes.
So, like, I can kind of get that they're like, we got our hands full. We don't have time for this. But at the same time... this is a serious war criminal. Yeah.
So then they thought about asking the Argentinian government
they wouldn't.
And they were like, we don't want to risk that. So the Israeli government arranged for a team to just secretly go into Argentina, and spy on Otto Eichmann, and literally kidnap him as he was walking home from the bus stop.
Nice.
Amazing.
I don't think I've ever been like I would ever praise a kidnapping, but this is one of those rare instances where you're like, good job.
Yeah. So that was May 11th of 1960. They kidnap him and they smuggle him out of the country back to Israel. And, like, shockingly, I guess not shockingly, but, like, infuriatingly, Argentina had the gall to be like, you have violated our rights by sneaking in here and kidnapping a citizen.
Our country.
And Israel was like, but we don't care. But they had to have a whole thing, and it was this whole stupid legal thing of, like, yes, okay, fine. Technically, we broke the law, but like we're not sorry about it because we needed.
And we're not giving him back. He's
We
not
needed to do
actually an
this.
Argentinian citizen.
Correct.
He doesn't belong to you. He was seeking asylum with you, and that's at best.
Yes. Okay, so his trial began on April 11th, 1961 in Israel.
That's today.
That's today as we record.
Yes.
And throughout the trial, Eichmann insisted that he was not personally guilty because he was only following orders.
Oh, that was the party line post-war. Just following orders. Wasn't my idea. I didn't have any choice. I followed orders, or they would send me to the camps.
Exactly. 4 months later, 4 months after the start of the trial, so August 7th of 1961, Yale psychologist Stanley Milgrim began a series of social psychology experiments in the basement of Lindsley Chittenden Hall at Yale University. So this is actually the story of the Milgrim Experiment.
We just had to go through a whole big backstory.
Yes, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
Okay, so this experiment was intended to measure the willingness of a subject to obey an authority figure who instructed them to perform acts conflicting with their personal conscience. Or, in Milgrim's words, it was to discover whether, quote, Eichmann and his 1 million accomplices in the Holocaust were just following orders. Could we call them all accomplices? Okay, Stanley Milgrim is your other picture if you want to see what he looked like.
Yes, I do.
He was born in 1933 in the Bronx to Jewish immigrant parents. And he identified very strongly with his Jewish faith and just his identity as a member of the Jewish community and as a Jewish man.
He looks like... what is that actor's name?
I feel like he looks like the dead dad from Princess Diaries. Prince Philip.
Kind of see
Prince.
that. He looks like Toby from The West Wing.
I've never seen that.
And I'm trying to remember that actor's name. I should know it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he does.
Let's do a side by side.
Side by side.
Richard Schiff is also Jewish and played a Jewish character on The West Wing.
Oh, great. Oh, yeah.
He just has more hair in the front. But, like, especially with the beard, the eyes, like...
Wow,
they could be related.
They're also making the same
eyebrows
expression,
and
which
the
is
nose.
really unnerving. They're, like, tilting their head the same way.
Yeah.
That's a little creepy. I hope so.
And the mouth is the same. They're kind of... Are they related?
You should look at related to Stanley Milgrim. What if it was his dad, and that would be a huge plot twist?
It's just a weird doppelganger, and it's
weird.
wild that
that you knew that.
Well, it's funny. Like, I can look at someone's actual kid and be like, you know, I don't see family resemblance, or like I can look at siblings and be like, I guess you look alike.
I guess.
But apparently, I can look at convicts,
Marvin
and
Hubbard,
Yale professors, and see actors. But it's funny, like, I could see an actor in a film, and then there's, like, a picture of them in a tabloid or something, and I wouldn't recognize them.
Yeah.
Like,
I hate that thing where you're watching a movie and you're like, who is that? What have they been in? What have they been in?
Well, see, and I can recognize an actor from film to film, like, even if they're wearing, like, crazy different makeup. But who is the actress that plays Khaleesi?
Oh, Emily...
I thought it was Emily, but I kept wanting to say Emily Blunt, but I'm like, that's not her.
No, it's Emily.
Amelia Clark.
Oh, Amelia Clark. Just kidding.
Yeah,
but Amelia with like an E.
But you know, seeing that, I do not see Khaleesi there because the hair is different. She's smiling.
Yeah,
like she just looks so different to me.
Yeah.
So like seeing her in another film, or you know, in person or like tabloids or whatever, can't see. Anyway, a lot of that can get cut out, by the way. But not the part about how Stanley
yeah, not the part about his doppelganger.
Looks exactly like Richard Schiff. Just with a better hairline.
We'll do another side-by-side in the Instagram post.
Absolutely do that.
Y'all are going to have to send me his name again because I'll forget it. Okay, so after World War II, several family...
I'll send you that straight-up picture.
Thank you.
Sorry. All right, go ahead. Start again.
After World War II, several family members who had survived concentration camps came to stay with the Milgrims. And so this, along with just like living during the time of the Holocaust happening, led to Milgrim's interest in obedience to authority research. So he earned his bachelor's degree in political science from Queens College in New York, and then he went on to receive a PhD in social psychology from Harvard in 1961, which is the year that he does these experiments. So in July, his grant proposal was approved, and he began to prepare for what is now, I think, a pretty infamous experiment. And if you don't already know what it is, I think you will once we start talking about it.
It sounds familiar, but I also keep thinking about the Stanford prison experiment.
And let me tell you, that was where I was gonna do an episode on that, and then
because we've mentioned it multiple times.
But I found out during my brief research of it that the results may be skewed. The guards may have been given specific instructions on how to behave. It wasn't all just everyone was put in a sterile environment and then naturally took these roles on,
which is how it's implied. And it's just, I think the experiment itself wasn't as groundbreaking. I think it is the way that it is been cited over and over and over again. It's been used as an example and pointed at as an example for so many different things. We've done it in a lot of episodes. Well, and it's been referenced and cited in a lot of like pop culture and like TV shows and movies and stuff. Like, it's just everyone knows about it. And I wonder if it's one of those Mandela effects things that like we all think we know what really happened in it, but we don't really.
Yeah, I definitely, it's definitely very different than what I thought. But I still think it's important because it's like, well, you can also just look at fucking prisons and understand that, like, even if it's not something that you naturally come to, like, if you're prison guards are given instructions sometimes. I mean, speaking only from an extensive knowledge of Alcatraz prison and those guards, you know, like, it's not like guards are put in and just said, okay, no instructions. Like, they're told to discipline and you know, like, be authoritative and stuff. So,
but they're also the mindset that the guards are better, the prisoners are beneath them, are less than human, or maybe not less than human, but they're less than.
Yeah. They deserve to be here. They deserve whatever happens to them.
They're bad. Like, that rhetoric being reinforced over and over again just kind of creates this mindset of, like, you know, and they do start to believe it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, lest we fall into that hole, which, you know, I would love to talk on.
Oh, don't get me started on prison reform.
Okay. So Milgrim placed an ad in the paper calling for subjects willing to participate in, quote, a scientific study of memory and learning. It would pay $4, which is about $40 today, and it would take about an hour. So, like, that's not bad.
I got an hour to spare for $40.
I know, right?
Sure.
So they were looking for people between 20 and 50 years old from all different professions, educations, backgrounds, etc. I will say, for this specific one, all of the subjects were men. Probably all white men, but, like, I didn't look that up. That's me speculating. So upon selection, they had 40 male subjects. They were told that the object of the experiment that they were going to participate in was to study the effects of punishment on a subject's ability to memorize content. They were also told that they would be paid regardless of the results or the developments of the experiment. They're like, you showed up, you volunteered, regardless of what happens during the experiment.
You're walking out of here with $4 in your pocket.
Yeah, like you're going to get your money. So they would pair a subject up with someone that they also believed was a volunteer. Mm-hmm. And they would draw a slip of paper to see who was going to be the teacher and who was going to be the learner in this experiment. Both of the slips of paper said teacher, so the person who was not a volunteer and was secretly part of the experiment mm-hmm. would just say, oh, I got learner, so that the other person would be like, oh, well, I got teacher. So there we go. So they would go to an adjacent room, and the learner would be strapped to a chair that apparently looked like an electric chair.
Okay, yeah.
Don't love this.
Now I'm knowing this.
Yeah. And they were both told that the straps were just to, quote, prevent excessive movement. Mm-hmm. The teacher would get a sample electric shock, because there's going to be electric shocks in this mm-hmm. experiment. So they would give the teacher like a sample, which was 45 volts, so that he could see what the learner was going to be experiencing. And also kind of to be like, this is real. Here's a shock to prove it. And they were also told that, quote, although the shocks can be extremely painful, they cause no permanent tissue damage. And then the teacher is brought into a separate room and set in front of an instrument panel where they would have the ability to administer electric shocks to the learner. So there were 30 switches on the panel, and they were labeled with their voltage designation from 15 to 450. And they also were labeled in a range. So like each one didn't have a specific label, but it was like, here's a spectrum. Mm-hmm. And it went from slight shock to moderate shock to strong shock to very strong shock to intense shock to extremely intense shock to danger, severe shock.
No more.
To
no more.
XXX. There were 2 switches that were just labeled XXX.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man. So
porn?
What if that was the twist of the experiment? If you get this far.
That one's a shock. That one's a shock of a different kind.
It's a different shock. Oh, I learned.
That one's a pleasurable shock.
I learned.
Ooh, I wasn't expecting that.
I learned a new phrase called fanny flutters.
Oh gosh, I can guess.
Because in the UK.
Yep, fanny, I know what they call it. I know what fanny means.
Okay, so you understand what a fanny flutter is. Okay, well, it's just a fun
way. Like I said, context clues.
It's a fun
way. I read a lot. I know a lot of random stuff.
It's just a fun way of saying that thing. Okay.
It's very accurate.
So the teacher could communicate with the person in the other room, but they couldn't see them. And what they were instructed was they were going to read a series of words, a series of word pairs to the learner. And then they would read back, I don't know if it was just the first word or just they would pick a random word. And then the reader was supposed to say or indicate the word that it was supposed to be paired with.
All right, so you be the teacher, I'll be the learner. Let's do kind of an example of this just for clarification.
Okay. So I'm going to read you a list of words. Skull and ghost. Flower and wine. Computer and highlighter. Sticky note and wine opener. Okay. So now I'm going to read you back.
Or do I have to say?
No. So then I would say, okay, flower. What's the word that goes with that?
Wine.
Okay. Skull.
Ghost.
Correct. Computer.
Highlighter.
And I forgot the other one.
Sticky note and wine opener.
Sticky note and wine opener. Okay. And I think that they were given multiple choice options. So I would say, like, flower, is the answer wine glass, stapler, carpet, or whatever the actual answer was?
Phone.
Yeah. And so the learner would indicate their answer by pushing a button that would, like, light up on the teacher's side. And so if they got the answer wrong, the teacher was told to administer a shock. And they would start with 15 volts. And then for every answer they got wrong, they would go up by 15 volts.
All right. So the teacher got the 45-volt shock. Did you, in your reading, did it give you an example of what that felt like? Well, what kind of, like, equivalency, just so that we can envision, because, like, not everyone's licked a 9-volt battery before.
It didn't, but I would guess, based on how high the volts go, I'm imagining like a shock collar on a dog.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, like, it's painful, but it's not.
It's more of a
Yeah, it's just like, I don't really want to do that again.
Yeah, like,
I mean, I will, just to see if it still works, but, like, but I don't really want to.
Like, oh, that hurt, and that was unpleasant. Kind of like, I guess, like the sting of being, popped with a rubber band.
Yeah,
just,
yeah, just not pleasant. They were also told that they were to increase the they were told to announce the voltage before each time that they administered it. So they would have to say, that's wrong, this is 30 volts. Bzz, whatever. So the learner, which we've already established, is not a volunteer. They are an actor.
They're an insider.
They're an insider. They would begin to make audible protests. So they would start saying things, and then they would also start banging on the wall.
No, please, no.
Yeah, as the voltage increased. They were also told to give, practiced. So they had predetermined answers that they were going to give, and it averaged to about 3 wrong answers to 1 correct answer. So, like, from the teacher's perspective, they are dumb and can't memorize shit. When the volts reached 300 volts, the learner would stop responding altogether. And the teacher would be instructed, because there's, like, a person administering everything, like, overseeing everything. So that person would say, treat a lack of response like a wrong answer. Wait 5 to 10 seconds before considering their lack of a response a wrong answer. So we'd get to 300 volts. You would stop responding. I would say, unfortunately, that counts as a wrong answer. Here is 315 volts. And after that shock, the learner would start pounding on the walls again. But then there would be no responses and no pounding or
just
signs
quiet.
of life. Yeah.
The person might have passed out from the pain.
Yes.
Or at least that's probably the thought that the teacher is.
Yes, that's the implication.
Yeah.
So the instructor, or the overseer, had standardized responses to questions or protests that the teacher might voice throughout the process. And they were told, like, okay, the first time, this is the first thing you say. If they continue to protest, this is the second thing you say. If they continue, this is the third. Okay. So the first thing they would say is, please continue. The second would, and they were like, I feel like we're hurting him.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable with this.
They would say, the experiment requires that you continue. If they continue to protest, they would say, it is absolutely essential that you continue. And finally, they would say, you have no other choice. You must go on.
I have the choice to leave.
Yes.
I'm not a prisoner here.
So if the teacher refused to continue after that 4th prompt, then they would terminate the experiment. They were like, okay, you can actually leave, actually. Yeah. Actually, this is voluntary. You
Just kidding. You do have a choice.
Just
if you're
kidding.
not comfortable, like, go. Wait, here's your $4.
Yeah, here's your $4.
Now go.
You can leave.
You know what? Have a $5.
Have $5 on us.
Here's $4 And some cab fare. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Have a great day. Hope this didn't emotionally scar you for too long. Oh, by the way, the person on the other side is actually okay.
Yeah.
Like, you haven't been causing them pain.
They did do like a debrief afterwards.
So okay, good.
Yeah.
I was honestly starting to worry about like
there's like 40
the emotional
traumatized
scarring of these poor men. Like because I'm sitting here thinking, you know, like if I was in that experiment, what would I do? And I could totally see myself like going full pragmatic mode, like completely turn off my empathy and emotions and whatnot and be like, this is what it is. Because if I am more or less kind of separated from it, like I could see myself being like, well, this is for the sake of, like, this is scientific integrity. Like,
yes. Yeah.
Like, it's for the sake of the experiment. Like, yeah, it sucks. It hurts
sucks
me
to be the other guy.
It hurts me. Probably not as much hurts that person.
Right.
But because I am all about science,
yes.
I'm like, then yes, I will do it for the scientific integrity of the experiment.
Right.
But I could also see myself 100% being like,
I was like, but you're also
this
an empath.
This is
ethically
really
wrong.
Yeah, like I have a lot of issues with this. So I honestly don't know what I would do in that position. I do know that I would be like, that's something that I would take with me and think about often.
Yes.
Like,
just like that little
maybe
girl
not
with her
daily,
underwear.
but definitely daily. Yeah. The little girl with her Star of David underwear.
So sorry. I just love
making the vampire cringe.
I don't love it, but I'm so amused that lives in your brain rent free, and I have not thought about it since we watched it, and since the one time that you mentioned it, and then it left my brain completely. Mostly because it lives in yours.
Yeah, I'm the one who's scarred by it.
So sorry.
Well, it's fun.
Can I suggest looking at pictures of beautiful women with strong eyebrows? That's been taking up my thoughts.
I'm gonna go watch a Keira Knightley movie.
Ooh, there you go.
Strong eyebrows, beautiful cheekbones.
Oh gosh, she does. She's got a great jawline.
Yes, she does.
She's
just gorgeous.
She is. Although the last movie,
she's just that classic beauty. Like,
she really is.
She's modern beauty, looks gorgeous today, but you put her in any kind of time or
Jane
period
Austen
piece.
Yeah.
Oh
man. Yeah.
Atonement. That green dress.
Oh god, I forgot about that.
I gotta make that dress.
Oh, you would look really good in that too.
You're
like, I know.
Green dresses, just in and of themselves, like, green dresses are magic, and I think they look. Everyone
like a red dress.
Everyone looks great in a green dress.
Yes, I agree.
But yeah, I do rock a green dress.
Mm-hmm.
I will.
We're gonna need to find a reason to get
get
dressed up.
Like, compliment myself or say nice things about myself nearly enough, but I will say I can rock the hell out of a green dress and red lipstick.
Ooh. Oh, can you guys,
or just like not necessarily together?
Can you just go real dark and ditch Walker for next Halloween and be Atonement as a couple?
Yeah.
It really just means you do what I did last year and make you the center of your couple's costume and make your husband an accessory.
Works for me.
Okay, great. Good. You have 6 months.
I'm sure I can make a dress.
You can. I
totally have time for that. Because the pattern doesn't exist. I've only been looking for it for years.
Oh, yeah. Well, you got 6 months. That's all I can say. Okay. So, before the experiment started, they interviewed 14 Yale seniors who were majoring in psychology and asked them to predict the behavior of 100 hypothetical subjects. And I assume they did this because math was hard for them too, and it was easier to just say, pretend there's 100 people doing this. So, of those people interviewed, they predicted that 0 to 3% of participants would continue all the way to the maximum porn voltage of XXX. And they also predicted that the maximum shock for most people would be between 195 to 240 volts, which was within the very strong shock range.
A lot of people wouldn't even get to the 300 where they would just stop responding.
Yeah. So their prediction was like, most people aren't going to get past 240. If anyone, three of 100 would go all the way.
So that meant like one person went, maybe not all the way, but almost all the way.
Yeah.
They might not have reached porn levels, but they were definitely in the,
the range,
danger.
Yeah, the
shock.
range where the panel implies that you're killing someone. Yeah. Even though they said that you're not going to.
Danger. Before you even get to the XXX, the porn, it said danger.
Yes.
So that's probably like one person made it to danger and then said, no, they're not going to the XXX.
Yeah. So, the results of the experiments. Of the 40 teachers, 26 of them continued all the way to the end, which is 65% of them, administering what they believe to be 450 possibly lethal volts to a person that they had met an hour ago. Briefly. All of the participants continued to at least 300, which was labeled intense shock. So they've already surpassed
the
expectations. Many of the subjects / most of them, they did exhibit signs of extreme tension during this, so they weren't just stoically sitting there and
I'll push the button. Sure.
There was sweating, trembling, stuttering, etc. 14 subjects exhibited nervous laughter and smiling. That thing where you just laugh because you're so uncomfortable.
Yeah, been there, done that.
3 of the subjects. I shouldn't laugh. This is me laughing because I'm uncomfortable. 3 of the subjects.
I'm right there with you.
3 of the subjects had seizures.
Oh no!
I know. I think they were okay, but they just threw that number in there. I was like, oh my god, 3 people had seizures.
Are we talking legit seizures, or are we talking just more panic attack
yeah.
and kind of having just convulsions and shaking because of the panic attack, because this happened before panic attacks were a thing?
I don't know, but I know at least one of them had to stop the experiment, I think for the safety of the subject, because they had a seizure. All of the participants paused at least once to question what they were doing. So everyone's questioning it. Shockingly, 65% of them are possibly killing someone. Milgrim repeated this experiment 19 times with several variations. So he would change the distance between the teacher and the learner. He did one using all women. He changed the location one time from we're doing this at Yale to we're doing this at a sketchy building behind the train tracks or whatever.
Yeah, because at Yale you're oh well, everything must be on the up and up because it's Yale.
But Yale.
You go into this sketchy building, this weird warehouse,
unlabeled
train tracks, and it's I might actually be killing a real person.
Yeah, you're this might be a snuff film that I didn't consent to.
I also thought snuff film.
You what?
I also thought snuff
film. Oh, okay.
Film.
You said I bought snuff film, and I was
no,
oh my god,
no.
That's why I was shocked. That's why I nervous laughed.
No, I almost said it too, but instead I went with something else because I thought snuff film was too dark.
Oh, sorry. My bad.
You are accusing me of buying
that. Okay. So the results were all fairly consistent, regardless of the variations. So essentially high levels of compliance. This is a quote from Milgrim about the experiment. The extreme willingness of adults to go to almost any lengths on the command of an authority constitutes the chief finding of the study and the fact most urgently demanding explanation. So essentially, we don't have it. We need to explain why most people will just follow an authority.
Authority is something that's been browbeat into us since childhood.
Yes.
Should I take a drink?
Sure.
All
yes. So there were two possible explanations that were put forth. The first one is that people will enter an agenic state. So they see themselves as acting as an agent for another person's will. If the person giving the orders is perceived as qualified and legitimate, and if the person believes that the person giving the authority figure will take responsibility for what happens.
So that's like when I was saying that I could see myself going along with the experiment. Unfortunately, a very long way through it because of my belief in science.
Yeah.
And, and if someone is telling me, like, this is imperative to the study that you continue, like, you have to do your part. Otherwise, the whole thing is meaningless.
Right.
And we have a question and we need to find the answer. Like, that speaks to my beliefs and that speaks to things that are important to me.
Right.
So, like, yeah.
I
could see myself doing it, unfortunately.
Well, and I feel like people
definitely have had follow authority browbeat into me since I was a child, and it's something that I still struggle with, like just accepting. Like someone tells me something and I just accept it, and it's like, no, question authority.
It's like when you grow up and you realize that you and another grown-up are both grown-ups and you don't have to listen to or believe everything that the other grown-up says just because they're a grown-up, because you're also a grown-up.
I 100% can have ice cream for breakfast.
Absolutely you can.
There's no laws against it.
No, not that we know of. Not in our state.
Oh. So that's just some arbitrary rule that some grown-up created.
Exactly.
And
I had my cake before dinner tonight, and I might have another piece after we are finished.
What's I think it's a Jim Gaffigan joke. No, you can't have cake for breakfast, but you can have fried cake with syrup on
it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, the other explanation was that people generally can't believe that a, quote, seemingly benevolent authority is actually malevolent, even when faced with overwhelming evidence. So if you believe that this authority figure that you have every reason to believe is doing this for the good of science, for the good of whatever, even when you're presented... Oh, gosh. Katie's holding her mouth shut. Even when you're presented with evidence that they are actually...
Literally every Trump supporter ever, everywhere.
Yeah.
I couldn't hold it in.
Sorry. I mean, I don't think it's not a secret on this podcast.
No. Like, we do our best. Someone did comment that they enjoyed our show, but they did not appreciate our
Trump bashing.
Our personal political beliefs.
Yeah. We're way past that, man. Our soapbox is part of the podcast.
Well, also, when we do go on soapboxes, it's more about individual issues, but we don't ascribe them to political parties.
That's true, yeah.
And we have really done, I think, a very good job of, for the most part, not hating on the specific parties and definitely not specific political figures.
Yes. We may have implied a bit, but...
Yeah, we'll dance around, but rarely. But yeah, I couldn't. I literally could not.
I mean, yeah.
So,
but that's, I mean, in 2016, when everything was happening in front of our eyes, when history was repeating itself in front of our eyes, it was, I mean, yeah, it was like, okay, you understand what a fascist is, right? Because, like, I'm reading you the definition, which is also the definition of this person that you're supporting, but, like, and so, like, obviously the implication is that, like, thousands or millions of Germans believed that Hitler had their good in mind and was a benevolent leader and could not even fathom that his intentions were actually just pure fucking evil.
And so they would be presented with the evidence of, like, but
here are death camps where millions of people were murdered.
They're being literally rounded up.
Yeah.
And brought to another place against their will, and then
you're never
either
seeing them
first
again.
forced to work to death or just directly executed.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole other large handful that are carted off to this other secret place to be experimented on in very horrible ways.
Well,
but we're not really going to talk about that. But it's going to be a very poorly kept secret, so like everyone knows.
Everyone's going to kind of know, but no one's going to say it out loud.
But we're not really going to talk about it and address it. And so, yeah, it's like, despite all of the overwhelming evidence of, like, look at him being indicted of all of these crimes, and people are like, oh, he's selling Bibles now? I need to buy one.
Bibles are free, guys. Just throwing that out there. And unfortunately, that is, like, I definitely grew up, I grew up in the Baptist church, and so I grew up believing that, you know, like, the authority figures in my life who were, like, my Sunday school teachers and my pastors and, like, etc., like, could not possibly have anything but the purest of intentions. And then one of our youth group leaders was, like, fucking arrested for, like, sex crimes against boys. And also the church just kind of turned a blind eye to that. But, but that, like, I don't want to say hopefully something shatters your image of that, but, like, for a lot of people, something happens. There's something that happens that shatters that image. A lot of that for me was 2016, when I saw these people who had taught me as a teenager saying, we don't actually fucking care about women, or about how this person treats or talks about women, or about people of color, or about immigrants, or about any marginalized group, because all we care about is making abortion illegal. And that was when I said, oh, wait a minute, maybe all of the authority figures that I grew up being taught were not, we wouldn't say infallible, but, like, it was implied. Maybe actually they don't have everyone's best intentions.
Because as browbeat as I was into respect your elders and listen to authority figures, I think you had it worse.
Which is shocking, because you went to Catholic school.
Yeah, but
Baptists are pretty terrible.
I mean, I rejected it pretty heavily.
Yeah, I think you
like, I was an A/B student, but you
sieved your way right out of stuff.
I often got C's in religion class.
Yeah, I really hung on for a while. Okay, so obviously there were some differences between Milgrim's experiment and behavior of Nazi war criminals. Specifically, Milgrim subjects were, this is just one example. Their subjects were told that no permanent harm would come to the learner, whereas Nazis were fully aware of the violence.
Very, very aware of exactly what was happening.
Exactly. Probably
in the presence as things were happening.
Yeah.
Probably watching, mass executions occur.
Yeah. I do have a note that, like, and I don't know why I'm, like, playing devil's advocate for Nazis. But I said maybe they were told / convinced that it was deserved, or that it was, quote, the only solution. But they still were very aware.
Solution to what?
To the Jewish question, obviously, Katy.
And what is the question?
I don't know. I don't
see. Well, that's the thing. I feel like, yes, there are probably some who really were literally just following orders, and, like, even though they knew exactly what they were doing, were probably sweating bullets, probably sick up most of the nights because of the things that they had done,
but convinced it was for,
and it was probably some of them might have been coerced, more or less. Yeah. Some of them might have been like, oh, if you don't do this, then you'll be joining them.
Yeah.
So threatened.
Yeah.
/ coerced.
But those were also likely not the people who were being promoted.
Right.
To officers.
Those are. And then there are the people that probably just have been more or less brainwashed.
Yeah.
And, going back to talking about swing kids. One of the characters is in the Hitler Youth and really does start buying into all of the propaganda.
Yeah.
And, like, really buys in, is more or less becoming brainwashed by the Nazi agenda.
Yeah. Which is so unfortunate because, not to get off the rails again, just to take a tiny step, but like QAnon kind of did that. Like, you get so deeply entrenched, and like I'll get entrenched in like a conspiracy theory, not one that has to do with like political leaders sex trafficking children, but like, you know, that the CIA killed JFK, or that Courtney Love might have killed Kurt Cobain. Things like that are not necessarily
I think
hugely
the surface level of conspiracy theories are, I don't want to say fun, but definitely interesting and entertaining.
Yeah, they're
like,
not.
Someone saying, "Oh, this eclipse is going to signal the end of the world." I'm like, that's hilarious.
It's hilarious until you believe it for a second. Then it's terrifying.
You're a level 7 susceptible.
Well, I grew up at a
I know.
church.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault. You come over. We're going to put you through some rehab.
Okay. Some conversion therapy.
No.
Opposite.
That's bad.
It's the opposite kind. It's where
just any
they make
kind
you,
of conversion therapy.
It's where they convert you to being gay.
You don't need that.
I know. They convert you to being a gay liberal. It's that. It's the other kind.
No, what I'm offering is just a healing from.
Yeah, I really just want to hang out with your kid.
Yeah.
And get some snuggles.
Especially once he starts asking why, that's when you need to start hanging out with the toddler more, because when he starts questioning everything, he's going to teach you to question everything.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to come
and
away
I'm going to say, like, we need to brush our teeth. And he'll say, why? And I'm like, well, I actually have an answer for that.
I'm going to come away from movie nights with, like, existential crises. Waking Jarek up and be like, okay, but Jarek, but why can't we have frogs inside? Why do we get to live inside, but they don't? Why? I don't know. We talked about it for an hour and we couldn't figure it out. I don't know. Besides the fact that frogs are scary.
Well, you know, there's actually, I believe there are some species of spiders that can only, like, truly survive and thrive indoors.
That's terrifying.
But they eat bugs, not people.
Yeah, I saw a thing on Facebook that was like, this giant wolf spider actually eats other poisonous spiders and also cockroaches. And you know cockroaches are, like, my mortal enemy.
Yeah.
This wolf spider was so fucking big. And when spiders get past a certain... I'm fine with small spiders. When they get past a certain size, I am so scared of them. I know they can't really do anything to me. Even it saying, I will eat a cockroach for you, did not... No. Out of my house. I'm sorry. You have to die. Or you have to go live at Katy's house. I don't know. You can't live here.
I mean, I don't want to invite spiders to my house.
So big.
But, like, there was a giant wasp in our screened-in back porch, and I still took a cup or a canister and trapped him and released him outside.
You're better than me. I would kill the wasp. If it was a bee, I wouldn't kill it.
Thank you for that. I appreciate.
You're welcome.
But yeah, no, most bugs. So we have a ladybug problem up at the cabin. And so now when Walker sees a ladybug in a book, ladybug, outside. And I'm like, you're right. Ladybugs live outside, because when I capture a ladybug in the house, and it's to the point where he found one, but it was already dead. And I was like, you're right. That ladybug needs to go outside. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go release him.
Oh, that's adorable.
Throw the dead ladybug outside. Not that I really want a dead bug in the house anyway. So.
Throw it in the trash. Okay. Next point. Sorry, everyone. I know I said we were just stepping a little toe off the rail. Okay.
You got a critter story.
You got to pause for those. Milgrim's subjects were not motivated by racism or other prejudices in their inflicting of pain.
Barely knew.
Yeah. Whereas, and that's why I wanted to give a little bit about Eichmann's upbringing, because as much as he would say, I was just following orders, he very clearly believed.
He intentionally switched to the Nazi party because of their beliefs about...
Like, he bought into it. He for sure believed what they were saying about the Jewish people. Milgram subjects were not, hopefully, secret sadists. And most of them exhibited extreme tension, anguish, conflict, whatever, with this kind of having to inflict pain. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Nazis, it was a very clear goal, the final solution, if you will. Like, it was a very well organized, like, very clear, this is what we're going to do because it's
I
the
like
solution.
that these differences are being highlighted here, because when you first told me about the percentages of, like, the I don't want to say success, or like the how far into the experiment the majority of the subjects went, I was just like, oh crap, I mean, just looking at numbers alone does kind of support the idea of, yes, just following orders. Yeah. But, you know, it's all about how the data are interpreted. Yeah. And, yeah.
Well, and I'm also glad that we're going through that, because one of the, like, possible implications, if you aren't looking at all the differences, is like, oh, any one of us, it could have been any one of us. It could have, you know, that Nazi who is just following orders could have been me, because apparently 65% of us have the potential to just follow orders to the point of killing someone.
Like I've said now a couple times, like, I could totally see myself going along with this, and that's, like, I don't love. Like, I don't like having to accept that about, like, that's a part of me that would just bow to authority. But again, like, that's because I would be supporting something I believe in, which is science and the integrity of the experiment to really answer a question. Yeah. If I were in some political party, if I were in the Nazi party, I would be believing in the purpose and goals, and, like, yes, sure, I might just be following orders and I might have some issues with it, but I would still be believing in the overall purpose. Like, I would, like, nobody who's an officer in the SS was like, yeah, I might be, you know, lieutenant colonel, whatever, but I actually don't have the same political beliefs as this. Yeah. So,
well, and also, I don't think we really think enough about, like, how hard it is to actually stand up to authority. Like, I was just thinking, I'm like, okay, what if, for whatever reason, my job required me to do something that probably wouldn't kill someone, but, like, would harm someone in a way? Like, what if your job was, like, to, you know, kick someone out of their home, or fire some, oh god, I couldn't fire anyone, but also, I'm like, god, could I stand up to, like, my boss and be like, no, I'm not going to do that because I think it's wrong? Because I'm also someone who hates confrontation, so I'm like,
but I think that would also depend on the situation. Like, are you firing someone for no reason, or like, you're just being told, like, oh, go fire that person? Well, what's the reason? There's no reason, just fire them. Yeah. That would be difficult. But if it's like, oh, well, they've been stealing, well, yes, they should be fired, right? Because they should not be stealing from their job. That's not how things work. Yeah. That's wrong, that's bad, we don't want someone like that working here. Then like, I also would not enjoy firing that person, because I also hate confrontation. Yeah.
Or even, I mean,
but I wouldn't have a problem with doing it.
Yeah. I was even thinking, like, I was talking to my friend, and I think her brother-in-law sells, I don't know, whatever. In some capacity, he sells nitrogen, among other things. And I immediately thought of, like, okay, what if his company is one that supplies the nitrogen to prisons who are now using nitrogen to asphyxiate prisoners to death in a legal way? I mean, even that kind of, like, compliance where you're like, okay, I don't actually want to be compliant. I don't want to be the person that sells this nitrogen to you because I know you're going to use it to to do something that I find morally wrong, but also it's my job and this is my paycheck. And
well, there's that whole like right to refuse service. Like, you know, there's
if you're
the
just
bakeries that
salesman.
well, there's the bakeries that are like, no, we don't want to make a cake for a gay wedding.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, okay, go to a different bakery that will make you the cake. Like, don't.
Also, why do you want to give them your money?
Don't
like, support homophobic
don't
businesses.
Support bigots. But like, I mean, that's why I personally, you know, like beauty products. I do my best to only purchase cruelty free. I do my best to only purchase cruelty-free products when I can.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's just like basically voting with my dollar there. Like, I want to support companies that do things. You know, I specifically look for, you know, clothing companies that are, you know, like fair trade or sustainably sourced materials or ethical workplace. I do my best to be a conscious consumer.
Right. That's a good point, because like it could go in any different direction of like, okay, well, you're buying from Amazon, you're buying from like a fast fashion place like Shein, and you're indirectly supporting. At
the same time, I'm also very fortunate enough that I can be conscious in those decisions. You know, I haven't always been in such a fortunate position where it's like, oh, well, I need t-shirts. Walmart has t-shirts that I can afford, and I know that, you know, their sweatshop or their t-shirts come from sweatshops and whatnot. So, you know, there is the, okay, sure, I am very privileged that I can make conscious decisions. But I know that there's others who can't. And that's why I think it's even more important that I do make those, because I'm voting with my dollar, and so I'm like, okay, well, if I can support these companies and they can have success, then other companies will see that success and adopt those same things, so that in the future Walmart will start supplying, putting out clothes that are sustainable or ethically, or at least fair trade, or ethically sourced things. So anyway, that's another soapbox. Jarrett, cut all of that out, honestly. I have one off the rails again.
One more point. Okay, so the last noted difference is that Milgrim's experiment lasted an hour, and so subjects didn't really have time to contemplate their actions or their implications before acting, whereas I'm sure Eichmann could have gotten an order and then had at least weeks, if not months, before having to carry it out, and had all that time to think about it and to know what the implications were.
He had to make the plans for it, not just carry it out, but like plan for it, like really think about it.
So this is a quote from a social psychologist named Thomas Blass, and he was also a Holocaust survivor. He said, "My own view is that Milgrim's approach does not provide a fully adequate explanation of the Holocaust. While it may well account for the dutiful destructiveness of the dispassionate bureaucrat who may have shipped Jews to Auschwitz with the same degree of routinization as potatoes to Bremerhaven, it falls short when one tries to apply it to the more zealous, inventive, and hate-driven atrocities that also characterized the Holocaust." Which brings me back to Eichmann's trial, which lasted just over 4 months. He continued to assert throughout the entire trial that he had not made any decisions, but that they had all ultimately come from his superiors.
Hence all the... I'm thinking of all the documents, the incriminating documents that he
were
burned.
Conveniently burned.
Probably him, like, plotting out plans. And
also there's evidence that he definitely made some of the decisions. Like, he wasn't just He said that he felt, quote, relief at the conclusion of the Wannsee conference because a clear decision had been reached by his superiors and it was, quote, out of his hands. The prosecution brought up this
He was also relieved because it went in his personal viewpoint's favor.
Yeah, he happened to agree with it. The prosecution brought up this fun quote that he said.
I heard the sarcasm there.
Okay, Eichmann at one point said, "I will leap in my grave laughing because the feeling that I have 5 million human beings on my conscience is for me a source of extraordinary satisfaction."
6 million, sir.
Yeah. Sorry, he's not claiming the other million.
Oh, no. Again, 6 million Jewish people.
Yes. Human beings.
Other millions of...
Yeah. I love that he even said 5 million human beings. Like...
He recognizes they are, in fact, human beings.
You knew that they were humans.
I'm getting angry again. Getting fired up.
At the end of the trial, he only ever admitted to being guilty of arranging the transportation that would take Jewish people to death camps, and said that he did not feel guilty for the consequences of that. His trial, which again, can I remind everyone, was held in Israel.
Oh my God, he fully is like, guns don't kill people. People
kill
people. I didn't kill anyone. I just put them on the trains to the death camp. I just put them on the trains them
and also authorized their execution.
But
I didn't actually pull the trigger. So, or whatever. Okay, his trial adjourned on August 14th, and on December 12th of 1961, he was found guilty of 15 counts of crimes against humanity, war crimes, crimes against the Jewish people, and membership in a criminal organization.
If you ask me, it should be 6 million counts of crimes against humanity.
I agree.
Sure.
3
we'll
days
go
later,
with 15. It's a start.
Yeah. 3 days later, he was sentenced to death by hanging. And in his appeal for clemency, he said, quote, "There is a need to draw a line between the leaders responsible and the people like me, forced to serve as mere instruments in the hands of the leaders. I was not a responsible leader, and as such do not feel myself guilty." Shockingly, he was not granted clemency, and he was executed. But also, again, the reason that I wanted to put everything at the beginning about what he did was because he was very clearly not only aware, but like
just following orders,
very willing, like taking initiatives, being promoted. He was not just following orders. Like,
no,
he doesn't get off the hook.
Orders is, just the bare minimum of like, you're just showing up, you're punching in the clock, doing what is expected of you, and nothing more.
Yeah.
And that doesn't get you promoted.
No, it does not.
Not multiple times within a few years, certainly.
But that is the story of the Milgrim Experiment, with unfortunately a lot of
Holocaust stuff.
Yeah, Holocaust history in there.
So I agree with the quote of the Holocaust survivor that the experiment, I think was good. I haven't sat and like really pondered it, or certainly haven't researched as much as you, but just like on the surface of how I'm reacting to it now, I think it was a kind of like a good start.
Yeah.
And I agree that it's imperfect, and it is definitely not super equitable, I guess, to these military officers who, like you said, had plenty of time between when the orders were, issued to when they had to be executed.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word. And so, like I said, like if I had been one of the subjects, even with the debriefing after, like, hey, just so you know, you didn't actually hurt anyone. Yeah,
you're okay. Like this person's okay. Here they are.
This was really the experiment. Like that would f with my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
And I would feel relief, but it would still sit with me. Like for a long time, I'd be like, okay, but what if I had actually caused pain? Like,
Yeah.
I would be wondering a lot.
It's almost like that, okay, now I know that I have the ability to do that, like that I might do that.
Yeah.
This time I was lucky that it wasn't actually, but
real.
what if another time
Yes.
I did it and I
it's-
actually hurt someone?
You know, it's like I've said a couple times, I don't like to admit that there is a side of me that would just go with it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think we've all got our dark corners of our psyches and who we are. And,
Yeah.
you know, like, it's kind of like you never truly know anyone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, people kill each other all the time. People
Yep.
you would never expect murder people.
Oh, I'm watching
or
a show
do
called
other crimes.
Signs of a Psychopath, and I mean, granted, it's about psychopaths, but
Mhm.
but they blend in. No one really knew until they fucking murdered someone.
I mean, how many stories start with, oh, they were just like a happy, normal family, and
Mhm.
then they killed everyone in their family.
Yeah,
And
pillars
it's like,
of the community.
a deacon in their church.
Oh gosh.
Very, you know, active in their PTA.
Oh, yeah.
Murdered wife and children.
Yeah.
I'm like,
And
So-
like, I think that there's not a perfect way. There wouldn't be a way, I think, at all to recreate like
no, there's
the
no
circumstances.
experiment
Yeah.
that can fully recreate it ethically. That's the word I wanted.
Yes, ethically.
There's no way to ethically really recreate kind of like all of the circumstances in the situation
Mhm.
to side with the I was just following orders.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to think, I'm like, okay, well, if I was on the jury and I tried to kind of put all of my prejudices aside
Mhm.
about, you know, my feelings of people who carried out all of the orders
Mhm.
of the Holocaust. And
Right.
I think it's one of those, like, if you're a certain authority level and up,
Yeah.
you guilty as hell.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Now, if you're just, you know, one of the guards, one of the workers, whatever, some, you know, low-level authority working at
Mhm.
the camp, yeah, you probably are just following orders kind of a thing.
Well, and I feel like there's a lot of like movies or media that do kind of touch on that of like, and I don't know what I'm thinking of specifically. It might be Saving Private Ryan because that's the World War II my go-to movie. But like the idea of like an American soldier being confronted with a German soldier and realizing Band of Brothers is what I'm thinking of. Realizing that like you're more or less the same. You're more or less, because American soldiers were also killing people, but German soldiers, because they saw them as
They were the enemy.
they're the enemy, they're evil, they're perpetuating all this evil, even before they...
And it's
Even-
just these Germans had two enemies. They had,
Yeah.
you know,
And
the Allied forces and the Jewish people.
Yeah, and it's like even before...
But only one of them was fighting back.
Before we as Americans even knew like what Hitler was doing to the Jewish people, still our soldiers were seeing German soldiers as they're the enemy. I think I've referenced this before, but there's the one episode, it's like the second to the last or third to the last episode of Band of Brothers, which is the episode where they discover a concentration camp. And before that, all these guys are kind of joking with each other, and this one guy's reading an article in the paper, and they're like, oh, what does it say? And it says, oh, well, it says that Hitler's a bad man. And they're like joking. They're like, oh, really? It says Hitler's a bad man. Oh, ha ha ha.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think there's a scene where they were, I don't know, but they're, and throughout the series, there are moments where they're confronting the enemy and realizing that they are all doing the same thing. Like they have their own brotherhood on their side.
Yep.
It's like there's a German
the
Band of Brothers
same.
happening.
They're the same.
And then they come across this concentration camp and they realize what's actually been happening. And it's like this, how could you just let this happen. Like, there's a confrontation in the town where they're like, well, they said that they didn't know what was happening. It's like, how could you not know? That many people don't go into a camp and they all are sustained. Like,
yeah,
you saw 100,000 go into the camp. Like, it doesn't hold that many.
This also kind of makes me think of, I believe this is World War I, actually, the Christmas ceasefire. Where like all the soldiers, they'd been battling for days and days and days and days, and it was like Christmas Eve, and they're like, hold up.
Like, we're all tired.
Can we just put a quick pause? We just want to, like, it's Christmas Eve. We want to have a little Christmas meal and, like, just relax. And they're like, the other side's like, we also celebrate Christmas.
We would also like to do that. Thank you.
We also have some of the very same, if not similar, similar, if not same traditions on this day. So if you could not kill us while we do our Christmas things, we won't kill you while you do your Christmas things.
Yeah.
And I think it's recognizing that the other side is only the enemy because someone above you told you so.
Yeah. It really does all come down to, like, authority. Authority. But
God, this is just such an existential subject, and like
crisis.
This is honestly, if I was listening to this episode just driving along, this would send me into a like mental tizzy of thinking about big thoughts.
Well, I can tell you the topics that I rejected in favor of this one, because this is one of those ones where if someone asks me, how do you find your topics? And I never know how to answer, this one I can answer.
Okay.
I started with Stanford Prison Experiment. I jumped to this one, and then I also ended up reading about the Attica prison revolt, which is horrific, and also MK Ultra, which will be an episode. And I read all of those, and I thought, which of these is the most sustainable in terms of doing an episode where we're not just going on 1,000 different soapboxes? And apparently I was wrong. But this one I think had the clearest, like, think about this thing.
This is a thought provoker. This is a topic too that I think, or at least I hope, our listeners will take to their friends and families. Like, oh, I was listening to this podcast the other day, The Tales We Tell. It's great. You should listen to it. And they did an episode about these experiments. And you're like, here's a little bit of information about it. And it just made me start thinking. And then like just having discussions with other people. So I know personally, if I were a listener, I would definitely be mentioning this to other people and trying to have discussions with them.
Yeah.
And then it would probably lead to lots of tangents and soapboxes like you and I have done.
Yeah. So. This is a very, like, I feel like everyone can relate on some level because it was an experiment done with regular people with implications to, like, it's like the worst of humanity, the most evil, and then also like the most normal, your next door neighbor, your uncle, your brother, who, or I guess when women did the experiment, us. But happy Wednesday, everyone, if you're listening on the day that this comes out. And also, I'm sorry. But I didn't lie, because in the main story, no one died.
No, just in the preface, 6 million people died.
Sorry, I told you.
Sorry, 6 million Jewish people died.
Yes,
we're gonna clarify.
Sorry, but in my main story, no one died.
Actually, no one got shocked harder than a 45 because it was just the subject.
It was really
one
only
shock.
One person got shocked.
One time, a quick little 45 volt.
And in an alternate universe, those XXX volts were actually a twist, and actually porn happened when you push that button. I don't know in what capacity, but
that was a satisfying.
Those were the sexy buttons.
Well, I don't know if this is actually real or just one of those stories that I've heard, but about how there is an experiment that rats were given the option of 2 buttons, and like one, they could push one button and it would deliver food, and the other one triggered a probe that was in their brain, basically, that stimulated the pleasure response. Essentially, they'd push a button for an orgasm.
Oh.
And the rats starved to death because they were only pushing the pleasure button over the food.
I mean,
so again, I
they
don't
had
know if
squishy teenage rat brains.
Yeah. Teeny tiny squishy rat brains. So again, I don't know if that's a real experiment or if it was more of like a thought experiment /
that is hilarious.
Like a cautionary tale thing, or just like
a cautionary
not cautionary tale, but like a anecdote of like humans will seek pleasure over their base needs.
Yeah.
And I think it was also often cited alongside like drug users and whatnot. You know,
yeah.
You know,
how make it sad, Katy. Jeez. We were laughing about the porn buttons.
What, you mean all of this delightful talk about the Holocaust?
I wanted to end on a happy note.
I could bring it back happy.
And you're like, happy. Yeah, like the way people get addicted to drugs.
Well, yeah, because the drugs stimulate a pleasure, and then instead of seeking out, you know, their
food
actual
needs,
jobs, like
food,
they're just trying to search out that next high.
Yeah, it's very sad. Mm-hmm. Way to bring us down and end on the saddest note. Yeah. Everyone can also
bring it back. But
speaking of science, everyone can also think back to last week, where scientists found out that voles get scared to death by glowing white owls.
I thought it. So Scott mentioned something about owls the other day, and he was like, "Have you heard or like seen videos of like the soundless owls?
They're terrifying."
Yeah, owls that fly without making any sound.
I thought that was all owls.
And I was like, no, but I do know about owls that glow in the dark.
Glow in the dark. They're scarier
voles.
Per science. Science says they're scarier.
Hannah would probably agree.
Well, you would agree because birds are scary.
It's not that they're scary. It's that I don't trust them. I mean, legit, Taylor and I were with the boys feeding the ducks.
Oh, gosh.
There's all sorts of pigeons there, too. And
so
at one point, all the pigeons just took off, and they all did their, like, loud flutter thing. And Taylor literally, like, you know, flinched and, like, screamed a little bit. And I was just like, birds.
Don't trust.
It didn't startle me so much
You were startled. You were just suspicious.
It was just like, nope, I've always got my guard up around these birds. So there's a happy ending for you. We're laughing at my distrust of birds.
We're thinking of the pigeons.
Boyds.
He's
got boyds. He keeps boyds on the roof.
Now I'm thinking of
the producers.
No, I was now thinking of
Don't be stupid, be a smarty. Come and join the Nazi party.
You're bringing it
back around.
I was thinking about the Newsies because of those ridiculous accents. I might rewatch it. I just watched it last weekend.
You were watching it when I came over.
Oh, yeah, we were watching it when you came over.
It's like 4 days ago.
I might rewatch it. It's got great music. And I can see that kid that I had a crush on. That 14-year-old. And I'll think of Kara, the adult woman.
Oh, Cara Delevingne.
That's an appropriate
I thought you were
crush.
Talking about my friend and our listener, Kara.
Oh.
Who crocheted us the awesome crows.
I mean, if she looks like Cara Delevingne, then yes.
She doesn't have the eyebrows.
All right, sorry, Kara. Sorry, Kara. Not it. I'm going to look at this picture again. I saved a couple pictures, maybe, because...
You're being a creep.
Speaking
of
creeps... She's a beautiful model. Her job is to be looked at. I'm sorry. That sounded terrible.
Yeah, way to objectify her.
I'm so sorry.
Demean her as a human being. Dang.
Take it back.
Speaking of creeps.
Though. Yes.
Trying to get Walker to, like, go upstairs or, like, do things that I want him to do. I'm trying, like, fun ways. I'm like, okay, can we do a dinosaur stomp? Rah, rah. And I'm like, all right, can we walk like this? Or can we creep? And I do, like, a funny walk. I'm like, creep, creep, creep. And then he's like, creep, creep, creep.
Oh, my gosh.
So he likes to creep.
Okay, that's the next thing I'm going to ask him to do. After an hour before he finally warms up to me.
Sometimes it takes a few minutes. Sometimes it takes longer. I can never tell you what's going to happen.
I'll bring Jill so that
he'll love you
so
more.
that he has an active person to reject. Yeah. And I'm there with my arms open, waiting.
For all the toys that he brings you.
Yes! That's how I know he loves me. Oh.
Well, if you want to see pictures from tonight's episode, you can check out pictures including our cast of characters, as well as a side-by-side of Stanley and Richard.
Yes.
You should check out our Facebook and Instagram at the Tales We Tell podcast if you want to see pictures but don't do the social media. Check out our website, thetaleswetellpodcast.com. And if you want to support us and get yourself some sweet, sweet swag, you can check out our Redbubble store. Search The Tales We Tell on Redbubble. Yeah, there we go. Got a little... My mouth kept moving before my brain caught up. My brain went on a sidetrack. We've got multiple logos and designs, and you can put that on anything. And if you want to support us, but you don't need the stuff except, I don't know, early access. So, like, if you're listening as a patron, it's Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
Not Happy Wednesday. So early access, commercial-free listening, sometimes some fun bonus content, stickers, love notes, yada, yada, yada. Become patrons at patreon.com. Search The Tales We Tell.
Yep. And next week's episode, people do die. So,
well,
sorry. We're back to the regular next week. And some people are going to die. That's all I can tell you.
All right. I'm okay with that.
This is nice that I have my episodes planned out ahead, because now I can actually give you a preview, a little teaser. All you get to know is that people die.
What a shock.
How surprising.
People never die in these episodes.
Oh my gosh. If you stuck around this long, thank you so much.
Thanks to Jarek for all of the editing that he's had to do on this episode, too.
By the time he hears this, he will not be in the mood to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, he gonna be
It's going to be like 12:30 a.m. on Tuesday morning.
Well, that's going to be on him.
That is going to be on him because it's Thursday, Jarek.
He got plenty of time.
And you have tomorrow and Saturday and Sunday.
And we have clearly explicitly cut this part out. Cut that part out.
He's going to point out that he has to still listen to all of that.
He gets to listen.
That's true, Jarek. Count yourself lucky.
He gets all of it.
All right.
Well, till next week.
Bye-bye.